Hey guys, Randy here from the Gateway to Heroes podcast. These are going to be my reading recommendations for the week. But first, I want to make sure I give my shout out to Enos L. Nickens, my friend and co-host on the podcast, who does his Big Nick's Picks on our page every week, as well as Eddie Nueves and his YouTube channel, Eddie from the Batcave, who is also posting on our group page every week. Thank you guys both very much. Love your content. Can't wait to see more. Also, you may have noticed a small change to my video this week, such as the nice new title card, the background music, and the fact that it's on YouTube now. So I'm going to be posting those directly on our YouTube page and then linking those to our group page, okay? Before I get into this, I want to address something that's been just kind of irking me all day. So, we've been doing this podcast thing for quite a while now. Before Gateway to Heroes, Enos, Tommy, and I used to do a podcast called Lost in the Long Box. We did that for about 4 years. Some of you may actually remember that podcast or followed us over from that one to Gateway to Heroes, right? We've been doing Gateway to Heroes for about 2 years, so we've been at this for a while, okay? The point that I'm getting at is Enos, Tommy, and I, and any guest that we ever have on our podcast, have actual reading and collecting experience under our belts, okay? We know the characters, we know our comics. If we don't, we go out and do some research to remind ourselves of things we may have forgotten or just don't know, okay? That is not the case with every podcaster out there. There is a podcast on Instagram. I'm not actually going to give you the name. I will give you enough information that you can probably noodle out who it is. The name of this podcast is the Blank Podcast, and that first word rhymes with bath, as in this content creator will probably be taking a bath in all the comments from people about how wrong they are on their episode of Everything You Need to Know About Doom, okay? Number one, this guy has almost 7,800 subscribers. So the fact that you are even having that many people watch you is a problem when you don't give accurate information. In this podcast, he straight up says that in the Marvel Universe, there are two Dr. Dooms. There is a Victor Doom and a Von Doom. This is where I quit even listening or watching the podcast. Dude, that is wrong. Okay, if you can't even make the effort to go research and know the subject that you're talking about, you shouldn't even be doing the podcast, okay? You just told 7,800 subscribers the wrong information, and now they're going to go back and quote that as if they actually know what they're talking about. This is the problem with a lot of you collectors that have only been out there for 10 to 15 years. And collectors, I need to put that in quotes because you clearly don't even know what a comic book looks like, let alone the storylines or the characters, okay? So don't even bother, just stop. Now, let's go ahead and get into my pulls and my recommended reads. I did have a lot of pulls this week. From Oni Press, Epitaphs from the Abyss, number 4. These are basically the EC comics. They're done in the EC tradition. I really love this cover here. Sorry, I'm trying to get this into the right camera. The interior art is also really good. Here's some of the art for you. Excuse me. I'm not going to lie. Some of these stories are a bit hit and miss when it comes to the conclusions. However, if you are a fan of those old EC horror comics, that's right up your alley, okay? From DC Comics, Action Comics 1071, written by Mark Waid with art by Clayton Henry and Michael Shelfer. If you remember, I told you last week that DC has returned Action Comics to that weekly format that they did, say, in the late 80s, early 90s. I really like the story Mark Waid is doing here. It turns out there's a problem in the Phantom Zone where it's now actually gaining physical attributes like the real world. And Superman has gone in to investigate why it's no longer just a astral projection type realm, okay? Don't know how else to put that. There's also a really good Supergirl backup story written by Mariko Tamaki with art by Scarlett Patridge. So if you haven't been reading Action Comics, 1070 just came out last week. 1071 is out this week. This is a good jumping on point for that book, okay? Also, another one that I really like here, and I know my friend Eddie Nuevez also picked this up, Catwoman number 69. Now, earlier I mentioned that I thought this series was ending with issue 68. That's because the current storyline ended, and the cover even made it look like it was ending because Selena said something like, see you later, or so long, or something along that lines, okay? But it looks like DC actually just changed the creative team. So this is written by Toron Gronbeck with art by Fabiano Mascolo, colors by Patricio Del Pace, and this cover is by Sebe Fumara. I really like what's going on here. This has got very much a classic crime noir look about it. As you can see, there's a great picture here with Selena in her apartment and the stray cat that keeps finding her. There's also a really great splash page of Selena as Catwoman. I really love the crime noir feel about this. So Catwoman, if you haven't been reading this, 69 is a great jumping on point. So I would say pick that up as well. Also, this next book, I'm a little bit upset, disappointed, whatever word you want to use, that more of you aren't reading this. My understanding from my comic shop, there's only 2 people that subscribe to this book, and I'm one of them. By Tom King, Jenny Sparks, number 3, with art by Jeff Spokes. This is the cardstock version, cover by Christian Ward, and I do love that DC is still doing this thing where if you buy the cardstock cover, you get the actual regular cover on the inside as well. I love that they're doing that. I have been telling you with this book that if you ever read Armageddon 2001, you want to read this. I will just go ahead now and tell you, since I think this might only be a 4-issue limited series, the bad guy in this is Captain Atom. If you ever read Armageddon 2001, it was supposed to be Captain Atom originally. Word got out that's who it was, and DC did a last-minute swap, changing it to Hawk of Hawk and Dove, and everybody was like, do what? But Tom King has basically decided, and I'm convinced that Tom King read Armageddon 2001 because he's like, I'm going to write the story where we got the villain we should have. There's a great panel here by Jeff Spokes with the Justice League talking to Jenny Sparks about what they're going to do with Captain Atom. And there's a really great 2-cover spread page here where the Justice League have gone in and confronted him, and he's basically mopping the floor with them. So Jenny Sparks, number 3. If you're not reading this, maybe wait for the trade to come out, but it is a fantastic book. Also, haven't read this one yet, but I picked up Wonder Woman 14, also by Tom King. Like I said, haven't read it yet, but he's been doing really good in the story, so I have every confidence that this issue won't disappoint. This is the cardstock cover by David Nakayama, and again, you get to see the actual regular cover on the inside there, okay? So, now, I'm going to dive into the back issues a bit. I know that Enos has covered this book already, but I also wanted to cover it. I decided I would just go ahead and wait a few weeks before I touched upon it, and that is Identity Crisis by Brad Metzer with art by Rags Morales. This is the Michael Turner Direct Edition cover. The newsstand cover is different. So there's so many great character moments in this. What I love is, number 1, we get to see a dark side of the DC Universe with the characters that we know. So Green Arrow, Zatanna, Hawkman, Flash, Green Lantern, Superman, Batman. Also, it takes one of the, quite frankly, B-list or even C-list heroes that no one really cared about and puts them in the forefront and makes you care about them, and that is Ralph Dibny, the elongated man, and his wife, Sue Dibny. Also, it takes one of those B-list villains that was always kind of considered a joke and reveals that they weren't always a joke. They used to be an actual, real badass villain, and that is Dr. Light. Another thing that I love about this is you actually get the feeling there's a little bit of resentment on the part of the lesser heroes, such as Hawkman and Green Arrow, in that the big 3 always took care of the trouble and left the mess for all of them to clean up, right? Again, like I said, some really great character moments. I'm going to have to read a little bit here for you, but there's a part during the storyline where Green Arrow is talking to Wally, and he tells Wally, "You don't understand, Wally. It was always about politics." And Wally's like, "And you never told the others, Clark, Bruce, even Arthur." And Green Arrow was telling him, people believe what they want to believe. They hear what they want to hear. And what I love about this is even as they're having this conversation, you see Superman there consoling Ralph Dibny, and there is a close-up of his ear, implying that Superman is hearing this conversation. And as he always has chosen to do, he ignores what he needs to ignore and pays attention to what he needs to. Just like you and I out in the real world have learned to ignore certain sights, sounds, and smells because they're there all the time and focus on what we need to. It's showing that Superman does the same thing as well. Also, going to show you this. As I said, it makes Dr. Light the main villain here and shows that he wasn't always the weakling and the wimp that he is. Here is a great picture of him sitting in his chair. And I want to show you this as well. This beautiful cover, I think it's Identity Crisis 7 of Wonder Woman with her lasso of truth. The reason I'm showing you this is I have a friend who is a Wonder Woman cosplayer that recreates this cover, and I will post that picture later. So if you haven't read Identity Crisis, please go pick this up. You will love this story, okay? Also, last week I showed you one of the comics that turned me from a comic reader to a comic collector, which is Flash 238. I decided to keep in that vein and show you Flash 268. Flash 235 is what I meant, sorry. I really love this issue. As you can see, it focuses on the Golden Age Jay Garrick with a copy of All Flash Comics here. You find out in this issue that Barry Allen is actually a comic collector himself. I even love the "What amazing secret does this Golden Age comic have that causes three heroes to fight for its possession?" I might have quoted that verbatim, man. Okay, so this is a standalone story. If you can find this, go ahead, pick it up. You'll probably really like it. Also, while we're at it, what I consider to be the best Doctor Doom story ever, Fantastic Four 198, 199, and issue 200. Written by the legendary Marv Wolfman with art by Keith Pollard and Joe Sinnott. By the way, that other podcaster who thinks there's two Dr. Dooms, this is what Dr. Doom actually looks like. Just in case you didn't know, because clearly you don't know comics or characters anyway. So I figured I'd at least show you Dr. Doom, because you probably forgot, you don't know comics. But this, in my opinion, is the best Dr. Doom story ever written. I really wish that they had just left this ending the way it was and not brought Dr. Doom back. I will tell you a little story here. My first exposure to Marvel Comics and Fantastic Four was the trade paperback where they reprinted issues 1 through 6. And of course, issue 5 is in that with the first appearance of Dr. Doom. And I said, okay, I like Fantastic Four. I'm going to go start reading this. And as luck would have it, what timing, this was the first issue on the shelf. So I started reading FF with this storyline. Another great thing about issue 200 here, this is a double-sized issue. Look at the size of that for only 60 cents. Man, I would kill to find a double-sized issue for 60 cents these days. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, best Fantastic Four story ever. You can probably read it at Marvel Online. You can probably find it in any number of collections, such as probably the Marvel Masterworks, what have you. That is it for next week. I will be back next week with more selections. As always, you can comment, have questions at gatewayheroespodcast@gmail.com. If you want to show us a little support, we would love that at patreon.com/gatewaytoheroespodcast. Until then, I will see you guys next week.